Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of a podcast that talks about triathlon. That podcast is Talking Triathlon, and I am one of the two hosts of the podcast that you're listening to at the moment. What am I doing? My name is Tim Ford. That's James Bale. It's early, mate. I haven't had enough coffee. Welcome to the show. How you going, Jimbo?
I'm good, mate. That you meandered your way into the show there. There was no real sort of decisiveness or what's the word I'm looking for? You didn't have a direction, but you found yourself here. How are you, mate?
I had an intro a few. I feel like I stumbled onto a good introduction maybe 2 months ago, and I can't remember what it was. I remember the broad strokes, but I can't actually remember what I say. And every week I'm like, oh, you should be right. It'll come to me. And I get here, and go, oh fuck, what do I say? I can't actually remember the way. I am good, mate. I have to tell a story because this happened to me
Are we
yesterday.
going straight in with it? You told me you had a funny story. Are
Straight
we
into a
going
story.
straight in
I
with it?
want to go straight into the story because it is maybe one of the most triathlon things that has happened to me in recent times. And it is just so fucking typically triathlon. And my God, what a disaster it was. I finished work yesterday at about 5 o'clock. I had a 90-minute trainer session to do. And and then I had a 7:30 meeting. So time was quite tight. Finish my meeting, start setting up the trainer, get the bike on the trainer, and I'm like, that's weird. My front tire on the bike that I exclusively use on the trainer is flat. Like I don't know how how have I got a puncture or a flat tire riding indoors? But obviously maybe it's been on the bike for a while. We'll just pump it up. No,
Yeah.
something's not working. I think the seal on the valve because they're tubeless is not true or something. So the air's just coming out. I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to change. Like I'm gonna have to put an inner tube in it because I'm not fixing a tubeless right now. If I go to my drawer of bike shit, and there's like four inner tubes in there. That's like three of them are probably just like 60 mil. My wheels are like 40 something mil. First one in, no drums. There's sealant though, so there's sealant going everywhere in my kitchen, like everywhere. Wiping it up, and then I put the more sealant comes out, wiping it up, and put the first wheel in, start pumping it up. There's a leak in the inner tube. I was like, we'll do this again. Get another inner tube. Same thing. Check this time. I'm like, pump it up before I put it in. Yep, no, it's good. No puncture. Should be right. Put it in the wheel again. And I'm not exaggerating. It's like there was an endless supply of sealant in this. Like how there was still as much sealant coming out of this tire as there still was is a mystery to me. Anyway, I get it done. Get the tire in, all good, all working, pump it up, gets it up to 90, like I can't 80 something PSI. And I've noticed that a fair bit of the sealant, because I don't give it, it's a trainer bike. Like I literally never ride this bike outside. So there's like sealants coming out from the valve thing. And I'm like, I'm just like, oh, anyway, I'll wipe it. Don't know what I fucking did. But then it's gone and all the air's come out of the second inner tube. And it's like been a puncture next to where the valve. Anyway, it's like you've actually got to be fucking kidding me now. This is the second failed attempt at
How
changing.
was your mood at this point?
Uh, people who thought I swore too much last week's episode,
Yeah.
times it by about 10. That was at this point of it. And anyway, I thought I had another inner tube with a long valve. I didn't. So then I spent 5 minutes trying to find a valve extender. I found one. Same thing. Check it. Yep, seems to be all good. Put it on the bike. And fuck me, for whatever reason, then the valve extender, the seal between the valve extender and the valve wouldn't hold. So all the air that I was pumping into the valve extender was just coming out
Coming out. Yeah.
three inner tubes down. And I'm just like, I'm standing there going, a better man or a weaker man than Tim Ford would have given up and said, it's just not meant to happen. It's time to accept that
Didn't you feel like the world was trying to send you a message at this point?
it did. And I went, you know what? It's time to get the TT bike back on the trainer. And James, you might think that that's the end of the story, but
Yeah,
it's
I'm
not.
hoping. What happened
Because
next?
then I got the TT on the trainer and decided because I've got I don't know if you can see, it's got the oversized pulley and big front chain. So it was almost touching the actual trainer because my chain sits so low. So I was like, okay, I better put it into a better gear. So that's not the case. Rear derailleur's not working. I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay, it's E-tap. I'll just charge the battery, grab another battery, put it on, still not working. And I go
oh,
through this process for like four but different batteries. I'm charging them at the same time. Get out the app on my phone, trying to pair stuff, check if the firmware updated. And eventually I got it to work, but I'm talking 90 minutes, 90 minutes of trying to get ready for my 90-minute bike ride. And I'm proud to say I got the session done. I did get it done, but I've never had so much effort to go for it, to go for an indoor. I've never experienced that many punctures on an indoor bike ride in my life. I was just like, this is amazing.
I've been there though. I know what it's like when you feel like everything's conspiring against you if you're trying to sort out a session. It generally only ever happens when you're a bit rushed,
Oh
you
my
know?
God.
When you
What
but when
a
you're up against it a little bit, shit starts going wrong and you're like, "Oh, I really haven't got the margins for this right now."
But I got it. I'm proud of myself for getting it done. It was a, yeah, it was a very, very. I just thought, fucking, how typical is it that I do that? I'm doing this ride so that I'm faster because I don't want to have to, spend the time going, and it ended up taking me twice. I was like, anyway, that's my story, Jimbo. If people want to hear more stories like that, I promise they're better than that. You can go to patreon.com/talking triathlon, where you get a bonus monthly episode as well as the Patreon group on WhatsApp as Facebook. Heap of signups this last week. So thank you. And to be honest, James, most of the stuff we're talking about has been brought to our attention from the WhatsApp group because the conversation has been non-stop in there the last week. But there's plenty to talk about, mate. It is a good old-fashioned, let's talk about some races, let's talk about some things. I just wanted to, before that though, because again, we try and strive to give as much accurate information as possible. One of the things we discussed last week when we were talking about the PTO T100 series was that they had to use Clash Miami, Challenge London, and Escape from Alcatraz, and the PTO has let us know that in fact they purchased the Challenge London event, so it is a PTO event, and at all the rest of the races this season, it will be the T100 crew broadcasting the races. So I just wanted to add that little
So that
addendum.
was the only um the only race that's going to have an outside broadcaster coming in
Yep.
and fiddling with it like that because yeah, I think things are going to improve and I think they're going to improve fairly quickly. That's the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is what I really respect and appreciate about the PTO. Compared, like, we copped a bit of heat for last week's episode from some people, which I struggle to understand considering we literally said at the start, just because you say you don't like something doesn't mean you hate the concept. Like we're trying to give feedback because we want it to be better.
And we spent a long time being very positive about the positive things.
Yeah.
It,
But
it amuses me a lot sometimes how people hear what they want to hear.
yeah, right. Or just I think they don't listen and assume. But we've had several people from the PTO reach out and say like, yeah, we listened. Yeah, we agree. We're aware. Like that's what I mean. And I appreciate that. It's not like they're uh, saying that like so other certain races have maybe reacted badly to when you've given, things spoken about things we didn't like. So I love to give them the credit because they are very there's a very two-way conversation with the PTO that I really respect compared to other
Yeah.
race organizers. And as we said last week, we knew they knew, and we know that they're aiming to do better, and we're excited to see that happen. Uh, it is fairly sporadic this week, mate. We might as well start with the T100 stuff. I guess it's probably the first thing to bring up, and that is Singapore, next race on the calendar, and it is sort of, I guess, a bit of a downer, but I think it's just the reality of this season. But we've seen the start lists are out. We've seen the wild cards, and I think the main talking point is we've got 3 wild cards in the men's race and 12 wild cards, I think, in the women's race.
I think there's 4 in the men's race.
Okay.
Yuri Kulin, Mika Newt, Kyle Smith, and Casper Stepanek.
Okay. And then in the
And
women's, do you have the list of women's wild cards
I
there?
do Pamela Oliveira, Lucy Buckingham, Anna Reichman, Rebecca Clark, Rada Kaderfeld,
Radka Carterfeld, I know that one.
Rad,
Radka.
Lottie Williams, Ellie Salthouse, Haley Chura, Kaidi Kivoja, Elsvisa, Jocelyn McCarthy,
McCauley.
Anna Bergiston. So a long list of wildcards on the women's side. Very pleased to see Ellie Salthouse racing.
I was waiting for that little reaction. I'm very excited to see Kyle Smith on the men's side.
Yeah,
I
I
think
bet.
I think Kyle is an excellent. Actually, we're going to talk about a few races Kyle's doing this year that I'm quite excited for. But while we've got the wild cards, I think that the main topic of discussion that I've seen this week has been around the fact that we've only got 8 of the female contracted
Yeah,
athletes
so
on that start
12
list.
wild cards on the women's side, which means only, like you say, only 8 of the contracted athletes are going to start this race. I think this is what we're going to have to get used to a little bit with these T100s when you're only obliged to race 6 races out of the entire series. You're going to have some races where the fields are going to be diminished slightly.
I think it's disappointing to see Singapore is the one that we're seeing this happen so much because, like, again, at least based on my experience on the ground last year, it really is a fantastic race, like truly. But also, considering that half the field got crippled with sickness after the race last year, I'm not surprised either. I can see that if they were picking one, like, yeah, people got sick last year in Singapore. But I just feel like of everything that the PTO's talked about with attempting to do with this series, like have, challenging, like we want a challenging course. Singapore course is challenging, spectator friendly, super spectator friendly course. On that run course, there's going to be people everywhere, whether they're watching the race or not. Uh, hot conditions, so not an easy sort of thing. It's downtown location. It's in Singapore. Like it's not like like Miami and then 40 miles out. It's at Marina Bay Sands. Like you're swimming past Marina Bay Sands, you're running around the bottom of Marina Bay Sands, and you're riding around the city. Like it's everything the T100 series is trying to represent. Like it's everything you could want from a race. Like it's got everything. So that's I guess like I kind of wished we'd
Yeah.
see that.
And it's the comeback race, isn't it? After, what was relatively underwhelming from a logistics perspective and a broadcast perspective, first race of this new series. Singapore is the one you want it to kick back in. You want it to have as many of the big stars there as possible to then put on a hell of a show, both from the race and from the actual package itself.
Yeah. But look, let's focus on I guess some of the positives around it because I still think we are going to see like there's enough names on that list that I think we're going to see. I guess it's more like it's feeling a bit more like a regular race, like not a like but like like a regional, a North American championships or an Asia Pacific championships. Like it's kind of got that feel in terms of the field, which is not bad. I still think it's excellent. We're going to talk about Oceanside later. Similar sort of thing. Uh, but in the men's race, like I said, I think there's a lot of firepower in that men's race. I think we are, poised to see something really excellent happen there because it is, 17 oh sorry, 16. Max Newman pulled that one just a little. I'm getting a bit concerned about Max Newman because it now means he's missed the first 2, so he has to do all 6 left. He hasn't raced since Ibiza last year. So
Yeah.
what's the injury? Like I hope it's not too serious because I really would have assumed we'd see him. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, has he said anything about what he's battling?
Not that I've seen. I mean, maybe like I can't remember, but I would have thought that if you again, I don't know, but if you're taking a T100 contract, you're expecting to race it, right? So I guess the expectation was that he would have been better in time for these races. He was on the start list for this event. So maybe I'm hoping that it's just he's not quite feeling sharp enough. Like he's recovered from the injury, he's done the rehab, and he's just back building. He probably doesn't feel quite ready.
Mm.
But I certainly hope it's not still the injury because that would be yeah, disaster. He's got such a bright future ahead of him, and to think it's been he's losing these years because of an injury is never good.
He'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be back. I've just checked his Instagram and there's nothing, there's no statements or anything
There's
about
barely
pulling
anything
out.
on it, mate. He
Yeah,
doesn't.
there is barely anything on it. Yeah. I was just thinking that very thing. So, no particular clue as to what the problem is, but like you say, hopefully he'll be back for the next one.
Do you think that we're getting to it already? I mean, Rico pretty much came out, I think, even before the race in Miami, said he was never planning on doing Singapore. We're talking about 2 very hot, hard races straight up. And again, Miami was hot, but it was flat and, didn't look difficult. I'm sure they still raced hard, but this I really meant this Singapore course it's a good course, mate. Like it's honest. Maybe there's a bit of that as well, where they're like, actually, I don't want to cook myself 2 races into this season, and the fact that, as we will talk about, we've got athletes popping up on start lists all over the place at the moment as well. We've got the Oceanside start list has got a number of the females, a couple of the men. We've got Ironman
Yeah.
races and challenge races that are coming up with their T100 athletes all over it.
Yeah, like you
Um,
say, that's that Oceanside start list. I think we're starting to see now. I mean, the first T100 race got in early, didn't it? And we're starting to see now that cross-pollination between the two series where people are spreading themselves across whatever they decide to do. I still think that those contracted to and with a desire to see the T100 eventually, as they start to run out of races they can drop, you will start to see athletes more consistently on the start lines for this series.
do you think, because I suppose I look at the athletes like a Magnus Ditlev, an India Lee, a Lucy Charles, those ones who've got those big points early. I would expect Magnus to do well in Singapore. Like I said, it's quite a tough bike course. We know he's so strong on the bike. Not to say I don't think it's a sure thing at all. I think it's actually going to be a good race, but you'd expect him to get good points. Similarly, Lucy did relatively well here last year. She's, second place, India Lee first place. I expect them both to do. Like we know Lucy's good in these conditions. Do you think that they're like for them, those athletes that have committed to doing that, getting those first number of races out of the way? I feel like to me at least, they're really setting themselves up for a good place in the T100 series where the pressure's suddenly off them. Like
Yeah,
if they
totally. The thing with getting the races you have to miss in early is that you're not giving yourself much wriggle room for things that might go wrong later on in the year. If you're not injured and you're not ill and you miss one of these races, you're basically using up a credit you've got for when you are injured or you are ill. Do you know what I mean?
Mate, and I think that the example of this that I kind of was hoping to segue to a bit is Laura Phillip,
Yeah.
where I think when we saw her as a contracted T100 athlete, I can't remember if I said it on the podcast or offline, but I was quite surprised to see her take the spot because she's never really seemed that keen on the T100 series. And then there was that article that came out a few weeks ago where she said she's not committing to either the T100 or the Ironman series. She's going to follow her heart. I'm like, well, that's great, but you got a contract with the T100, which means you have to commit to the, like, it's not optional. It's not like hey, we're going to pay you this money. And if you want to come, come. Like, no, you've committed to 6 races.
Yeah. Because
So
if
that
you
means,
don't race 6 races, you're not going to get your contracted payout.
yeah. So she basically now will have to do every T100, like, she'll have to do every single one of them. We know she wants to go and, sorry, we know that Laura wants to go and do, well, Laura's on the start list for Roth. Laura's going to try to win Nice. I suddenly look at that and I go, how's that going to happen? Like that's not going to work. Like,
No, the
yeah.
season is looking. I mean, I get the impression. What I mean as an audience, a member of the audience, someone who's trying to support these events. The only thing it leads me to believe is that the T100, despite being contracted to it, is not high on a priority list at all.
Question has to be asked then if you're the PTO and you're seeing this. Like again, we're not sitting here thinking something that they're not thinking. Like they're not dumb people. The PTO are very, very smart people. So if we're sitting here thinking this, surely they're thinking the same thing. They must be like looking at this going, come on, Laura, what are you doing? Stop talking about all the races that aren't T100 that you're doing because you're yet to tell anybody what T100 race you're actually doing. At what point do you think there's a tap on the shoulder to say, look, to be honest, this ain't working for us. We might slide in somebody else. Like Lucy
Yeah.
Buckingham. Like she give Lucy a contract. Lucy Buckingham said it last week. Real impact on the race. At the front, changing the dynamic, pushing Lucy in the swim, was there on the bike until she got sick. Like, at what point do they have to start doing this? I think I'm genuinely curious.
Is there not an obligation because of her ranking that she can have a place and it's at her
Mm.
behest?
I don't.
I think that's the difficulty, isn't it? You've got when you've set a bunch of rules in place that at the top, however many athletes get themselves a contract if they want it.
But I would still like. It's still optional, right? Like it's not forced on them, and then you have to. It's not like a. You
Optional
might,
from the athlete's perspective.
yeah, but what I mean is that if the athlete is failing or clearly there's intent to not conform to the conditions of a contract,
Yeah, yeah.
like what I'm
There
saying,
must,
obviously they had to
there
give it
must
a
be
spot
some
on the.
comeback the other direction as well. Yeah,
And
I
again,
get you.
imagine if you wrote a contract that didn't have an exit clause. Like, come on. If we're talking about the numbers we keep being told, $3 million worth of PTO contracts, and you've not got some sort of clauses to protect this exact thing, it's
Hmm.
something's wrong. Uh, but even
Well,
for
I
Laura,
mean,
yeah, you think maybe
she
she's like, yeah,
may
I'm not into this.
she may well be planning to race all 6 of the remaining races that she hasn't missed.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
But like
fascinating.
I said, you're using up. I think you're putting a lot into the world at that point, aren't you?
Mm.
Where you're leaning on the world and saying, well, nothing's going to go wrong from now on. I'm going to get all these 6 races done without injury or incident.
That's similar to Max, right? So Max now missed 2 races, still has to do the
Mhm.
others. We know, a huge priority for Max Newman. I would assume, I said we know. I assume a huge priority for Max Newman is going to be Kona again after his fourth place there in 2022. And what's the Vegas race? The week before? The week before Kona? So
Yeah.
then, yeah, you might line up, but I mean, surely you'd want to be in Kona. The traditional thing is you want to be in Hawaii 10 days before the race to, acclimate and everything, or not even in Hawaii, but sorry, not in Kona, but in Hawaii. Duck over to Las Vegas for a weekend the week before Ironman Hawaii. Like this is the stuff where I start to go, I just don't get it. I don't understand how it's going to happen, but uh, I'm sure we'll see as we get closer and that
Yeah, I
things will
mean,
iron
with
themselves out.
Max, I'm getting the impression it's very much sort of injury based, isn't it? It's kind of been forced on him, these decisions. Um, I'm not getting that impression from Laura, only based solely on that article where she said she was going to follow her heart rather than feel like she had to race. It's I get the impression she's choosing these to miss these 2 races early and therefore having to backload the rest of the season.
Well, I mean, we've also heard, right, that there's this code of conduct coming from the PTO because it sounds like maybe the contract was, I should probably ask, but it was a fairly vaguely worded thing. So they haven't add or put out this supplementary code of conduct, which sort of, I guess, reinforces or defines a lot of the conditions or terms in the contract. Because it did, again, from rumblings we've heard, there seemed to be this idea that a lot of athletes thought it was a bit of a piss take, right? Where they could just sort of take the money, rock up, go through the motions, and then the PTO has sort of been like, no, no, that's not it. You've got to do things a certain way. So yeah, again, I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but if it is, maybe things will change a bit. But we will see either the athletes actually go, okay, I'm opting out, or going, oh shit, okay, I actually have to commit to this now. Like that'll be fascinating to see as well.
It must be a hard ship to steer, though, if you're the PTO right now, because success brings teeth, doesn't it?
Mm.
When you've got a series that is successful, it is earning the money, it's getting the eyes on it, it's got the partners, the sponsors, and essentially you're paying those athletes a huge amount of money. I mean, we're talking more money than triathlon's ever seen. This I'm talking about the future when they get where they want to be. That's when you've got the teeth. Right
Yeah.
now, they're trying to balance having any teeth to make people do what they want them to do before they found that success and found that ability to really dictate what they want to happen. So it's a juggling act, mate. A balancing act, I would say, more than
Mm.
a juggle.
Well, I think we'll talk more about that as we get closer to the actual race because it's still a
Yeah,
ways away. But uh, I'm really happy to see Carl Smith on the start list. Really happy to see Ellie Salthouse on the start list. There
yeah,
was
yeah.
another female name that you mentioned that I was Lucy Buckingham. I think like just let's just get her into the
Oh,
season.
yeah. It's great to see her back again after the first race, and ideally this time she'll hit the start line without having just had food poisoning and be able to demonstrate what she really can do because she's a fantastic athlete.
Yeah, well, let's transition now from the T100 series to Oceanside 70.3 because the Oceanside 70.3, the first race of the Ironman Pro Series, the big competitor to the T100 series, came out this week. And the big talking point, and again, full disclosure, a couple of the guys that I represent are racing the race, so we've been talking about this race a lot, was that it was a completely full men's pro field. There was no slots available for male pros. It was full, sold out in effect. So we've been like, shit, like who's on it? And the start list is out, mate. Now, do you have it there? Because I've got it in front of me if you'd like me to go through
I
it.
don't actually have it in front of me. No, I've got everything else, but not that one.
Spoiler alert, I'm not going to go through the 100
You're not
plus
going to read
names.
out all 100.
I'll be honest, I don't know who half or probably three-quarters of them are anyway. In the women's race, though, we've got Tamara Jewett, Taylor Knibb, Fenella Langridge, Paula Finlay, Emma Pallant Brown, other names that are of familiarity to me. Grace Thick, Danielle Lewis, Maya Stage Nielsen, Lauren Brandon. Any other names that really jump out at me there? That's sort of I guess they're the big hitters from the women's field. And again, I'm sure the other athletes are wonderful. I'm just not familiar with them, but it looks like there's 40 women on the start list. Straight away, Taylor Knibb. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go through the men's field. Jackson Laundry, Patrick Langer, Lionel Sanders, Joe Skipper, Braden Curry, Sam Long, Yella Gaines, Trevor Foley, Mark Dubrick, Chris Leiferman, uh, Maddie Hansen, Florian Angert, Maddie Sharp, And then there's lots of names that I don't know. Eric Lagerstrom's there. Simon Shee. Matty Veit's the guy who wants to get an FTP of 500. And John Thule, who trains with Joe Skipper. So there's lots, but I'd also say that I guess what I was saying, it's a bit more of a standard Ironman field, right? Where you've got that
Yeah. You're top heavy.
you're top
You know,
heavy.
you've got some big names in there, and then suddenly you're in a realm where you don't really know anybody or have ever heard of anyone. But, you know, the most exciting point from the on the women's side, I think, is I wasn't expecting Taylor Knibb to be racing this race. I didn't know she was gonna, and it's really exciting to see her there racing alongside Tamara Jewett, Fenella Langridge, Paula Finley, Emma Pallant Brown, all athletes that on their day could really mix up this race.
It's funny, isn't it, how you add one name and suddenly it really changes. Like I'm a lot more excited for this. It's not 20 athletes, right? And again, I'm not trying to discredit. I think the T100 series in Singapore is wonderful, but just having that Taylor Knibb factor, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm really keen to see this happen now. But again, I can't help myself, right? If you're the T1, if you're the PTO, you'd be going, well, we specifically gave you a contract post Olympics to allow you to prepare for the Olympics. And now you're coming out doing 70.3. What are you doing to us? Like,
Well, it's a broad brush, isn't it? I mean, in that instance, they are trying to accommodate all short course athletes that
yeah,
want to race the T100 with a strategy that will be best suited to most people. And in this instance, an athlete like Taylor Knibb, she's proven time and time again that she's capable of going long and going short. So if they based their policy to short course athletes on what she was able to do, then you wouldn't be doing the best for most people. You'd be doing the best
yeah.
for her.
I think now again, I am grasping at straws here, and it's more off the top of my head, but I have a feeling that when Kat Matthews announced her full season this year, Oceanside and Texas were two of her events. I think. Don't quote me on this. I think from the back of my mind, because I know that Kat was trying to commit to both the T100 series and the Ironman Pro series, which credit to her, she does. It's unbelievable. But she's not on that start list. So that tells either I'm completely wrong and this is nothing, or maybe that little calf tear from Miami is a little bit worse, or as we sort of assume we're going to see maybe some athletes have reevaluated their season when they sort of look at the realities of what this year is looking like.
Yeah, I don't have any inside information on Kat's injury, but yeah, I mean not on this start list. Whether she was planned to or not, I don't know. But
I
yeah,
think
I
so.
mean
It seems familiar
it
to me.
a calf injury is something that you want to be getting well before you start racing on it. So,
Yeah. But
just would
this
be fine.
Tamara Jewett, Paul, Emma Pallant Brown, Paula Finlay, Fenella Langridge, Taylor Knibb, like just those that's what five athletes. Like that's fire. That's great. And so I'm pretty keen for that. And then the men's race. Jackson Laundry, Patrick Langer, Lionel Sanders, Joe Skipper, Braden Curry, Sam Long, Yella Gaines, like just that alone, Mark Dubrick, Chris Leiferman, Matty Hansen. Yeah, it's not bad, is it? I can
No, no, it's really not bad at all. I think we've got for the first race of the Ironman Pro Series. I mean, this is kicking it off, isn't it? They're kicking off the Ironman Pro Series with a 70.3 in Oceanside. And with that, they're showing that they've got the capability to draw strong fields to come and race this Pro Series. It doesn't really have the strength in depth that, some of the races will have as we get into the season. I think that's probably because it is one of the 70.3s rather than one of the full Ironman. But it is early season and we've still got, despite it being a 17.3, we've still got some big names here. Patrick Lang racing, Joe Skipper, Braden Curry, Sam Long. I mean, look what Sam Long did um Miami with his tremendous run. So we're going to be mixing it up. It's going to be really interesting. On the men's side, you know, Patrick Lang's going to be out the water before Sam Long. Sam Long's going to catch him on the bike. Can then Sam put enough distance between him and Patrick Lang to not be caught on the run? Sam's no slouch on that run, mate. So, how much distance does he need?
yeah. Well, mate, I think then you've got like the Yella Gaines, right? So Yella is a short course athlete, a very, very good short course athlete. So he's going to be one of the first out of the swim. He's going to be with them on the bike, and then he ain't going to be a slouch on the run either. Like, are they able to make, is Sam going to have to ride? Is he going to have to make it that time on the bike because he ain't making it up on the run? Or like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
interesting stuff here, but it's also,
Exactly. And then you've got an
yeah,
athlete like Joe Skipper in the mix who'll be out the water before Sam Long. How far before Sam Long?
minutes, mate, miles, miles.
But not unbridgeable on the bike. Then you've got two very, very strong bikers who can ride together. And Joe again is no slouch on that run, is he?
No, exactly. Even like Braden Curry, like there's some real firepower here. I mean, and we're just not even talking about Jackson Laundry. And I know Sean Green's gonna have the shits about that because he's the number one fucking Canadian fanboy. Uh, yeah, Jackson again has won this race. Very, very classy athlete. Lionel Sanders we've not even touched on. We don't know what Lionel's been doing. Like Lionel's been off in his pain cave doing his thing. He'll come out and absolutely rip this. I think Lionel's best at this distance. I can
Yeah.
looking at this, I would expect Lionel to be a huge threat
Yeah,
with this
so
race.
I'm
But
really intrigued. I'm always intrigued by Lionel Sanders. I'm intrigued by the first race of the season to see where he is because it's going to be a great indicator as to his form. If it was an Ironman and we were coming in to watch him race a full Ironman, I don't think that would be as good an indicator as to where his form is as watching him race a 17.3. Because if he's in full flight over this distance, he could win this.
he's the spoiler alert. I'm probably picking him for my top three, to be honest. Uh, but the other thing about this is, I guess it's our first true indicator of those people that are looking to commit to the Ironman Pro Series. Like these are the ones that are going all. Because looking at that list,
Excuse me.
Jackson Laundry, I'm not so sure about because he doesn't really do Ironman. But Patrick Lang definitely going for the Pro Series. Lionel Sanders definitely going for the Pro Series. Joe Skipper definitely going for the Pro Series. Braden Curry is definitely going for the Pro Series. Matt Hansen going for the Pro Series. Chris Liefman, I'm assuming, is going for the Pro Series. Like you can start to see those names that are going, no, this is the thing I'm doing this year. Whereas the women's, it's the complete opposite. Like Fenella. Fenella is the only obvious one to me on that list there. I mean, Danielle Lewis, maybe Maya Stage Nielsen, maybe Lauren Brandon, maybe. But the only one that really jumps out at me going, the women that are going for the Pro Series is Fenella because I'm not expecting Tamara, I'm not expecting Talonib, I'm not expecting Paula Finlay, I'm not expecting Emma Pellant-Brown. So that's a fascinating sort of dynamic to this. But again, it's different to the PTO because there's so many of these Ironman Pro Series events throughout the year. So there's no commitment to do them all. So it is a really different dynamic. But I'm really excited about Oceanside, mate.
So am I. So am I. I think we should put some picks in though, don't you?
Already, we still got mate. It's not for like 2 weeks or something, right?
Yeah, I
For,
suppose we're
for
going to be assessing form closer to the event.
I did put up this tweet though, and it fucking just it grinds my gears, James. There was a post on LinkedIn that was like announcing the Ironman Pro Series broadcast schedule and this sort of stuff. And the number of people were like, why don't you focus more on the age groupers? It's time to embrace the age groupers in the main, or like it's all about. I was like, you stupid.
Time to embrace the age groupers.
The T100 has the pros, so the Ironman series should just focus on the age groupers, I think was actually a comment that I saw on that. I
What's
was
the
like,
point? But in what sense? In what sense?
oh, they
What
want to
extra focus? What extra focus
they
do they
want to
want?
they want to be on the broadcast, mate. They want Ironman to broadcast the age group race. So, because again, amateurs
No one will watch that.
what
No one.
what are you
Not
talking
a
about?
single. Maybe your
All the
mum,
amateurs, all
your
the
dad.
it's all about the age grouper, mate. Surely, if we broadcast amateur racing, so we broadcast stationary cameras watching the pelotons of age groupers going past at their 30 miles an hour with their 26 gels strapped to the top tube and their aero helmet that because they can't get their head right, sitting up like a windbreak every other amateur watcher, mate, because as we know, amateurs, it's not actually about the professional racing, James. It's about the
Yeah.
amateur. So maybe that's why the broadcast hasn't worked quite well enough. Maybe what the PTO should have done is contract 20 amateurs from all
Should be
age
called the
groups.
ATO, shouldn't it?
Should be, mate. In fact, we should start that. We should start the AGO, age group organization, AGTO, age group triathlon organization. People would join,
We just
man.
lobby to make the shittest broadcast the world's ever seen.
Oh, but they'd love it. They'd just be like, "See, it's the same people you can bet who take the screenshot of the finish line cam when they cross the line. It's like the camera's like this big and the finish is this little thing, you can barely see them. And the little guys on TV, it's like, God, I can see people getting angry coming at us just for those comments. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the Ironman Pro Series. Another race series that has announced, or races, another race or event that has announced its start list for this year is Challenge Roth, mate. The big one.
Yeah, it has indeed, and it's started making these announcements a bit early, in my opinion, but because a lot could change between now and the 7th of July 2024. But Challenge Roth has put out a start list including Magnus Ditlev, Patrick Lang, Laura Philipp, Rudy von Berg, Daniel Beckegaard, Leon Chevier, Lisa Norden, Clement Mignon, Laura Siddle, Savannah Tones, Jan Streeman, Magna
You're just making
Lua,
them up at Jan Stratman. You just
Jan,
it's like you just like
Jan
fuck.
Stratman. I got thrown off
I
by
love the thought that you're like
Savannah
a
Tones.
James Bale isn't actually a real person, guys. He's an
I
AI
know.
voice thing, and you just put these things in. It's like come up with a random way to pronounce this. Sven Thos, Sven
Yeah,
Thos, Jan
yeah.
Stratman,
Jan Stratman.
Leon Chevalier. It's like
Chevalier.
every time you pronounce
Caro.
Leon's name, you have a different way of doing it.
I know.
It makes me laugh.
I have a mental block
And
with his
You didn't call Clement Mignon Filet this time,
name.
unfortunately.
Yeah. And then a load of names who I don't recognize.
Carl
But
Smith.
yeah, it's gonna be an interesting. He's not on my list here.
He's on the Instagram thing that they've put up. Carl Smith
Oh
was one
yeah,
of the
so yeah,
names.
yeah. Sorry, Carl Smith, Matt Troutman, um, Joshua Lewis, Daniel Lewis, and many more. It says Peter Heimrich's on there as well.
Oh, he's a good one. He's one that flies
It
under the
is indeed.
radar.
So it's going to be an interesting race. Again, I mean, on the men's side, obviously there's a trio here of Ditlev, Lang, Beckegaard with Rudy Monberg, another name to throw into that mix. I can't see past Ditlev
Carl
for Roth.
Smith. Carl Smith, mate. I'm telling you.
You really think so?
Oh, mate, this is Carl Smith's year. Carl, we know, sort of half committed to, or attempted at the start of last year to go to the Olympics to support Hayden. Realized it wasn't happening, so then sort of spent like I don't know, he got sick a lot or whatever, but I don't know if you remember what he did in Wanaka at the start of this year. Absolutely destroyed it, like destroyed it. And he said it's the best performance he's had. He felt great. I think if Kyle fully commits to long distance Ironman racing, he's such a talent, mate. And again, Magnus, the gold standard, that performance last year was masterclass. I could just see Kyle being that spanner in the works that sort of, doesn't follow that measured effort approach. Like he's a racer. Fucking takes it by the scruff of the neck and goes. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm interested to see how it happens though.
Come on, Kyle, mate. You've heard it now. You got to do me good.
How is an athlete breaking the code that is Magnus Ditlev on this race?
I think you've just got to, I don't even know, right? Like Magnus does his thing. Like this is what we're sort of talking about with that Miami race, which is
Yeah.
why I
He's
find that a
racing,
little, he just
racing the
races his
clock.
race. He doesn't seem to really, nobody can really do anything to him on the bike because if they do, he can respond. I think it's a bit like we used to say about Jan or whatever. You've just got to make him uncomfortable. You've got to put him in a situation where he can't do that because I think that when you're so controlled and you know your numbers and your stats so well, if you can force them to not be able to follow the game plan and they have to actually react and race, that's where the uncertainty can come in. And that's when the best laid plans can come undone because suddenly you're not in control anymore. And I think that's what we need to see. Because again, Carl Smith's going to be a front pack swimmer. Daniel Beckegaard, that like those guys can then, like, how hard do they have to push at the start to put Magnus, into the box a little bit? I don't even think it's much to just mean that he can't just ride through, set the pace, and then just run away with it. Or can they hold on? If he comes through, can they commit to like not let like you're at the front, Magnus, you're doing it, and we're going to hold your wheel even if it kills us. And then somehow, I don't know. I don't know, mate, because he's just in another league at the moment. Like it's unbelievable how good he is. So that's the only thing I can think. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Like you say with Magnus is Magnus. Magnus? Jesus. Like you say with Magnus, make him uncomfortable, put him out of his comfort zone. He's got the response on the bike. He reminds me of Miguel Indurain, just the ability to follow anything and then break you on the time trial. He's gonna have to do a Bjarne Riis and break him on Hootercam, mate.
Yeah, as the world's biggest cycling fan, I'm all too familiar with that. And You're right. That's correct. That is what he's going to have to do.
On the women's side, looking at the start list, Laura Philipp is an obvious
Our friend, she's back to discuss.
favourite.
Just, I was just thinking after we just spoke about her doing all these other events, and it's funny that she's not committed to which T100 race she's doing, but we know she's doing Challenge Roth. It's funny.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, but I look at this and I see obvious favorite. I mean, if I when I think about the article where she was saying she was going to follow her heart, she's committed to this race on the 7th of July, which means, and it's now March, which means she's bought into this race. And an athlete of the quality of Laura Philipp, if she is racing where her heart takes her, then she's going to be fully committed to this. And I don't see past her, even from this far out.
No, mate, no doubt. Like Laura Philipp is an extremely good athlete. So, I mean, she's an athlete that almost every start list she's on, you expect to see in the top three. So, yeah, I completely agree. She's a Yeah, like I said, I just makes me. How you doing this? How you doing this? Plus another one to qualify for Nice, plus Nice and the T100 6 races. And yeah, just Laura Siddle, great to see her on the start list again. But again, I just like you have to give Roth a lot of love. It is We know that all these guys are getting paid to be there. Actually, sorry, Leon Chevalier is another one that we need to watch out for. Like I
Yeah.
think he flies under the radar. And again, I just think if we think back to the last Kona where he had the fastest bike split, including was he fastest or he was almost fastest, but he had a penalty, and he would have been faster than Sam if he hadn't have had that penalty for the water bottle fell out. Like Leon Chevalier is another athlete that he's on the precipice of becoming a household name. Like he's such a good athlete. So he's another one that I could see, throwing a cat amongst the pigeons a little bit if he's able to sort of execute the race that we know he's capable of. And then obviously, one of our favorites, Daniel Beckergaard. You just
Yeah.
know he's got it in him. Like I have no doubt like Daniel is that good an athlete. And I just feel like he's like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dragon Ball Z, but he's like a Saiyan who's just powering up, ready to go Super Saiyan. So
Yeah, agreed. He has definitely got it in him. I think for the moment, I'm gonna stop picking him for wins.
because you're cursing him.
Uh, hey,
You're cursing him.
I'm cursing him, and I think he's got it in him. He's just too busy making content, isn't he? He needs to stop making shiny videos and
He's in
start
Australia
focusing.
at the moment.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's on holiday, isn't he, or something?
No, I guess I'm assuming he's come down here before the T100 Miami. Not Miami, Singapore to do swim
Yeah.
training in Noosa.
I
I
think
think,
he was going away for a month, wasn't he? For his mum, with his mum,
don't know. You'd know
something
better
like that.
than me.
There you go.
So he's on holiday, just throwing the feet up and just chilling in
Little bit of
Noosa.
training alongside, I think.
So the next thing, obviously, that's Roth. We've spoken about Roth. Oh no, before that, actually, the thing I do want to talk about is Patrick Lang, because we've got Patrick Lang. He's doing Oceanside. He's doing Texas. He's doing Ironman Frankfurt. He's doing Challenge Roth. He's going to do Ironman Hawaii. That's a lot of Ironmans for a guy who we normally see do one before Kona traditionally.
Yeah, it's a lot of racing, isn't it? I mean, I think he's got it in him. I don't see Patrick Lang as he doesn't make me think injury risk or breakable, He's got such fluidity to him that I think he'll be very good at measuring his effort. We may not see him in full flight in all of these races, but I think we will see the best of him when he wants us to see the best of him.
Kona.
Yeah.
Like he's
Kona, Frankfurt maybe as well.
Well, I'm assuming that because traditionally you either do Roth or Frankfurt. Like I can't think of a person in recent times that's gone and I'm going to do both of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you able to bring up the date? Because Roth is when June, early June, I think Roth is, and Frankfurt's traditionally very, very close to then anyway. Like it doesn't sound right to me that you're going to see Patrick Lang. Maybe he's changed his mind about. Maybe he originally planned to do Ironman Germany and then Roth threw a lot of money at him because I know he gets paid quite well to be there.
So Roth is on the 7th of July.
July, okay.
Frankfurt is on the 18th of August.
Oh, no, okay. So that's
So
possible.
there's
It's possible.
workable time between those two races.
Week off after recover, ease back into training, 1 week of hard training, or a week and a half of hard training taper. Yeah, it's possible.
It
Okay.
is possible.
Okay.
It's almost, I would say, the perfect gap between races as long as you don't get sick.
For Ironman, yeah. That's okay. Okay. And then he could take a breather from there and just focus solely on Kona, which is 26 October. So August. Yeah, that's the 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Okay. Yeah. Okay, fascinating. And again, Roth, maybe it's just the good appearance fee. Maybe he's doing the T100 approach to Roth. They're going to pay me to show up, rock up, and all I need to do is, I think somebody in our group said it right, is that the difference with Roth and other races is that, like the shoes, you can wear the different shoes that Ironman won't let you. You can probably have all the bike stuff that Ironman won't let you. Like we could actually see, like maybe Patrick is just going there to run a sub 230 marathon. Maybe that's the goal in Roth.
Could well be the case. I think his main focus, like you say, is going to be Kona. I think
Yeah.
he sees an opportunity this year where um, those that he's going to be racing against aren't going to take as much time out of him on the bike as they did in Nice.
Mm. He
You
was
know,
good.
he's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had to work hard on that run to get that time back.
Mm. I think Patrick Lang's very dangerous, like, this far, and again, not knowing whether Norwegians are out of stuff like that. But I would be saying Patrick Lang is a very dangerous looking athlete for Kona this year. Just it's
Yeah,
like a
agreed.
it's like a Lang renaissance after he had that injury and he's come back and we saw him, it's just been killer run split after killer run split after killer run split, and he's not a slouch on the bike. Yeah, Patrick Lang, I think we could see potentially get a third. I mean, look, I've said it a million times. If Sam Laidlow does what he did in Nice, nobody's getting close to him because it's
Mm.
just like another stratosphere. Like the fact that he put Magnus in the hurt locker on the bike. Uh, but
Agreed. Agreed. I like this new methodology that Patrick's applying to the year though. You know, he's racing into form rather than sort of not hiding his form or hiding in the year, but we never, like you say, we never really used to see a huge amount of him until he popped up at the big race. Whereas this year he's gonna be racing his way into form, and I love that.
we should probably jump. And again, like obviously I'm Joe's manager, so I do sometimes feel a bit funny talking about Joe in too much depth. We didn't even really touch on Joe when discussing the Oceanside, and then talking about Patrick Lang with the Ironman Pro Series. I think it is, Joe to me is like, speaking with Joe, we've sort of identified Patrick Lang is one of those major sort of, I guess, threats or competitors looking at the overall series this year. But I mean, I honestly think every time I see, like, I saw this start list come out and I messaged Joe, I said, mate, this is looking good for you for the Pro Series. Like every time I see these guys doing one of these races that falls outside of the framework of that Ironman Pro Series, I do think it's like fascinating. Like it's a very interesting year in terms of, we sort of have the two mainstreams of T100 and Ironman, and then you've got the challenge that sort of does a thing. They pop up and do something like this. But it's
Yeah.
almost like that, that literally that scatter grenade, because this Roth race could suddenly throw everything out. We've got Magnus doing it, who's going to be probably the favorite for the T100 series. We've got Patrick Lang, who's one of the favorites for the Ironman Pro series. We've got Leon Chevalier,
Yeah.
who could be it suddenly
It
does
certainly
just,
has. It adds a really interesting dynamic, doesn't it? From
yeah.
a supporting perspective, you get this sudden. There's more to talk about. There's a different angle with every race. Normally, you'd just be thinking, okay, well, those athletes throughout the year, they're going to focus on Roth. Fine, and that would be that. And then you'd think, well, Magnus is probably going to do Roth and then reappear for Kona later in the year, having qualified somewhere. Whereas this adds such a different way of looking at it because Magnus, like you say, is focused on the T100. He has to be. He's won the first one. He must be thinking, I can do this. But he's also got to balance his ambitions at Roth as a two-time winner of Roth and current record holder. He's got to balance his, what I can imagine is a fairly hefty appearance fee for going to Roth and being there as the defending champion. And then he's got to balance his ambitions at Kona as well.
Which he has
I
to
know that
qualify
you
for.
and yeah, exactly. You and I have said a lot that, if you were the PTO, you wouldn't want your athletes voicing their desire to focus on other race events or other race series or other big championships, but we can say it. And obviously, it's going to be in his mind that he needs to qualify for Kona and he wants to go there and have a big race.
So and that's it, right? Like this is the same thread that we keep coming to is I look at this year and I just don't understand how they're going to do it. Like you could see Magnus went to, was it, what race did he do? Florida at the end of last year, where you could tell the plan
Yeah,
was, let's get
it
that
was a bit
Kona.
fucked.
yeah, let's get that Kona slot out of the way. Like, let's get that done. So then for the first half of the year, I can focus on T100. I'll go do Roth and then Kona. Boom. That didn't work. So now, at least I think, what did he get a slot? I don't know actually.
Don't think so, did
I
he?
don't know. I don't know. I don't follow that closely, to be honest. But yeah, it's but let's not even take Magnus. Like I said, we've said it about Laura Phillip. There's so many. I mean, Chelsea Sodaro, I think skipping Miami to get the slot ratified for Nice was clever for her doing that in New Zealand. Same with Amelia Watkinson, getting that early world champ slot makes sense to me because it's out of the way and you want to have as much distance between that race and the big one, I suppose, in terms of Ironman racing, or do sort of what Langer is. But yeah, it just adds this entirely new dynamic. So I suppose I guess the one real downside about this year being an Olympic year is that we're not seeing as many of the short course guys on that Oceanside start list as well.
Yeah, that's the only void, isn't it? I think in all of this at the moment, other than Taylor Knibb, whose name's flashed up on Oceanside, it's awesome.
She's
It's
doing it all,
fucking
mate.
awesome.
I'm
Yeah,
calling it
yeah.
now. Taylor Knibb's going to
But
win Olympic medal. I don't think she'll win gold, but I think she'll get a maybe a silver in either the mixed team relay or the individual. I think she could medal. She's going to be 70.3 world champion. She could be the Ironman world champion, and she could win the T100 series. Like it's just
it's cool, isn't it?
it's so
It's
cool.
cool.
It's
But yeah,
wonderful.
that like I was saying, all the only thing that's lacking is we're not seeing those names, those male short course names pop up on the
Mm.
various races. We're seeing Taylor Knibb on the women's side, that's it. We're not seeing any of the sort of the usual suspects that we expect to see. Less on the women's side, only really Taylor Knibb that I've seen really bouncing back and forth between long and short course. Whereas on the men's side, you'd have Christian Blumenfeld, you have Gustav Eden, you'd have, various other contenders.
Gustav's a fascinating one, right? Like, where is he? What's he
Yeah.
doing? Gustav, where are you? I'd love
I
to
think he's
ask the 2021
I think he's
WTCS
shacked
world
up with the
champion.
Princess of Wales somewhere.
Sorry?
I think he's shacked up with the Princess of Wales somewhere, mate, to be
They've
honest.
both gone missing. But
Where's Gustav?
where's Gustav? Where's Kate? Come on, Christian. 2021 WTCS world champion, Christian Blumenfeld. Tell us, where's Gustav? What's he doing, mate? What's the inside scoop? Because I mean, look, I'm just assuming he's all in on Kona. Why
He
wouldn't you?
must.
Must be.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that with, me and you have both said repeatedly, don't do the Olympics, mate. You ain't suited to it. It ain't gonna work. But his ambition was there. Now that he finds himself in a position where he's got to make some decisions, you would think common sense would kick in and you would focus on that race that looked comparatively easy for him to win.
Easy, God. The funny thing is, the scary thing is, you're not wrong. Like
No,
it could be easy. Fuck, he's yeah, just
the way he won that race, mate,
the best.
was fucking remarkable.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Looking that relaxed on that run.
Just the again, like one of the true highlights of my triathlon fandom was being right there when you saw him make that move on Christian. Like watching it happen in real time was phenomenal. Was so cool. So yeah, it was cool. We've sort of done well to segue into this because we've started touching on the short course athletes, and that's kind of where I want to wrap up the episode a little bit this week because we're going to talk a little bit about start numbers, and I think we'll talk a bit about that article at the back end of this. But we discussed the fact that Abu Dhabi got cancelled and the implications for that this year, considering that we've got an Olympic, people need to earn points for Olympic spots as well as for federations as well as individuals. So the World Triathlon have come out and basically agreed to increase the start lists for other races throughout the year to try to make up for the fact that there were less athletes able to earn those slots in Abu Dhabi.
Cool.
Nothing.
No, no. It's a good reflex. It's a good response. I mean, something needed to be done, didn't it? You can't just miss out on that opportunity, certainly not at this critical time. So, it's the best they could do, I would say.
I don't know where I was listening. I was listening to Mockery, and they had Max Stapley and Seth Ryder were talking about it. And that weekend where we finally had Gwen Jorgensen, because with America, the battle for fifth place is between Katie and Gwen. It's actually really it's probably more entertaining than watching the top couple, to be honest. But Katie, I mean, Gwen got the start in Abu Dhabi, which is huge news for Gwen, considering she, sort of struggled to get on a WTCS start list last year. So she finally gets it. Katie goes and does a race in Miami, actually, like can't remember what it was, some like maybe a Conti Carp or something. And Katie did well, but then Gwen's race didn't happen. So any points that Gwen could have earned, she didn't earn. So
Yeah.
it's thrown this whole thing out. So like there really are implications for this, beyond just us saying, okay, yeah, but like it's good, but it's also like this is where I think the short course stuff and I've criticized like is a bit boring, where it should be about the broadcast. Like yes, I understand that there's an actual like bureaucratic process that has to happen with all of this, but it does sort of mean like, okay, well, bureaucracy's in the way of entertainment a bit with it. Like we're talking about increased field count, cool. It's not going to really increase,
No. Oh, it's not going to do anything for the broadcast. It's not going to make the audience experience any more entertaining or interesting. It's going to make the geek out experience a little bit more entertaining for people like us. People that are really bought into who's going to be lining up on that race in Paris. But if you're a casual triathlon viewer and you're tuning in to watch a race, having an extra however many people on the start line doesn't do anything to make that broadcast or that race individually more interesting.
Well, on that, because the last thing to talk about this week was an article that came out by Tri 24/7, and it was discussing the fact that Jackson Laundry was coming out saying that how difficult it is. I think it was Jackson, to get a wild card for the PTO for the T100 series. And the opinion article was basically asking, do you think? I mean, firstly, we did an episode a few weeks ago where we talked about that they should actually limit the field size of WTCS. So the fact they're extending it's a bit like it's gone the opposite. But a lot of the comments in response to this Try 24/7 article was, yes, the PTO should increase the field size from 20. I've seen a lot of people, I've had conversation with Joe Skipper offline about him thinking that one of the reasons the broadcast was a bit boring is because the field sizes are so small. He says that, more athletes will create more situations for, packs, moments to happen. And that definitely seems to be the overarching response online is people saying, yes, they should increase field sizes from 20. What do you think about that?
I think there's a nuance to that
Oh,
question that
imagine James Bell being like, excellent question. It's a very complicated one that I need to give some deep analysis to.
I don't think it's as easy as just saying yes, increase the field size because it's going to bring more complicated and interesting racing. I think it goes much deeper than that. I think there is an argument to be made that the field size doesn't deserve to be increased within pro triathlon, long course triathlon right now. And the PTO, their ambition is to grow the strength and depth within their ranking system so that the athletes get closer in ability much deeper down into that ranking system, and that at that point, when you've got that strength and depth has been increased, that's when you earn yourself the right to have an increased start list, increased field size, and more interesting and entertaining racing. What we need to avoid right now is having more people on the start list and just a greater disparity between athletes where you've got those racing at the front for the win and those just fucking off backwards, because that's not a showcase for a pro sport.
And I've said this since the inception of
Shut the fuck up, Joe. What are you talking about?
Did it was one of those. I was like, shut up, Joe. I don't agree with you on this. But I just don't think that I still don't think they've worked out how to broadcast the races to show the entire race. We see the front
Agreed.
5 or 6. And I don't understand why adding another 10 people behind it that aren't going to feature except as lapped athletes adds anything. And again,
It adds nothing.
and I've said we need to stop thinking of this. And I get it, it's hard, right? We need to stop thinking of this as traditional triathlon, which is
Yeah.
it's for everybody. Like the T100 series isn't a traditional triathlon series. It is not a mass participation. There is an element of that. But the T100 Pro series is for broadcast. And anything that doesn't add to the broadcast should
Yeah.
be discarded as far as I'm concerned. That
It
should
is
be
not for the athletes,
no,
not for their experience.
no.
Their experience should be a good one. Don't get me wrong. Pro sports should provide a good experience for their pro athletes that are racing. This entire series is for the audience. It's for the people sitting at home. Make it fucking good for them, and then everything else follows on.
Mm.
If your focus is on the athlete experience and trying to make it as fair
Fair.
and
Yeah.
for everybody to be there and as many people as possible, but you at the expense of making that broadcast as good as you possibly can, Yeah, we're gonna go fucking sideways, mate.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I get it. It's go do the Pro Series then. Like that's what it's there for, right? Pro Series is open to
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. Go and do the
T100,
process.
yeah, it has to be for the broadcast, and I think that's something that Super League's been really, really good at. They'll fill the numbers because they need to have a certain number of athletes, but they're not just bringing in more because it's oh well they're ranked 163rd in the world and it's they'd like the experience, so we're trying to like no unless they're going to actually add to the broadcast the dynamics whatever it is. I mean even last year with the slower athletes, we still had them, drop in the those incredible run laps to get the run points. Like still added to the broadcast, right? Like there was something. And yeah, I just think it's you get it right. It's like a paradigm shift for a lot of people. They've got to stop thinking about triathlon a certain way. They need to, and you can see people struggle with that. Even I admit it, I do too. But yeah, if I just think no, there's no point. There's
Yeah,
no
you
point at this
don't,
point in time.
you're not increasing the F1 grid size because you want to give more opportunity to racers further down the pecking order.
No,
They're the
exactly,
best fucking racers in the world and they race.
exactly.
It's
Jimbo,
up to the broadcast to step up and make that entertaining by having the camera angles, having the opportunities to see what's happening down the field.
it is one of those rare weekends for me. Actually, we got the Australian Grand Prix on this weekend, which means I can sit down at leisurely 3 p.m. on Sunday and watch the Grand Prix. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. Instead of having to wake up and find out that Max Verstappen fucking won again, I'll get to see it in real time.
Which
So,
he will.
but Jimbo, that's going to do us this week. If people want to find out more about Talking Triathlon, support us on Patreon, etc., where do they need to go?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T14 on Instagram, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. Find us across all social networks at Talking Triathlon on Insta and at Talk Triathlon on Twitter. If you want to join the Patreon group, you can, and you will get access to the monthly bonus episode and the social group and the WhatsApp group. And the WhatsApp group is buzzing constantly with conversation and disagreement and agreement, but all in a very friendly way. It's a good group of people.
Except for Sean Green, who's always gone on about the fucking Canadians.
Fucking Sean Green, Jesus. Hey,
Lionel Sanders isn't Canadian though. He's American because he lives
yeah,
in
I think so.
he's American, right? Because Sean's
Yeah,
always
I
gone on
think,
about Lionel, but I'm like, why are you going on about Lionel, mate? He's like America's number one ranked
yeah, I
long
think he's
distance
American.
athlete. Definitely. Like
Yeah,
I have no doubt. Lionel Sanders is an American. He represents the USA.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely.
But when he races, he only drinks maple syrup.
But that's because he heard about Canadian superstar Tyler Mislachuk does that. And because we know that Lionel
Yeah,
loves to jump on and do things that others do. So
yeah.
he saw what Canadian superstar Tyler Mislachuk did, so he embraced that. Similarly to how he was going through the moldy fish, because that's what the Norwegians do, the lutefisk and those sort of things. So he did that for a while too. But yeah, American athlete. So Sean, I don't know why you keep going on about Lionel Sanders, mate, when he's clearly an American. So
On that note, I'll say cheerio.
see you later, guys. Bye.